Welcome to the Aron Mentor Podcast. I'm Dr. Ali Tayyip, nurse, educator, advocate, and United States Navy veteran. This show is about real conversations with nurses moving the profession forward. We discuss leadership, practice, policy, research, and more. What matters and why it matters. I'm glad you're here, so let's get started. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Aron Mentor Podcast. I'm super excited to be joined by two incredible individuals. Aron King. Aron is a registered nurse, healthcare leader, and PhD student at University of California, Davis, specializing in community-based mental health interventions for Black men. Currently an assistant manager at UC Davis Health. He has worked in cardiac telemetry and medical intensive care and is passionate about advancing health equity. A recognized leader in nursing, Aron has served in multiple roles on the executive board of the Capital City Black Nurses Association, chairs the National Black Nurses Association Ad Hoc Committee on Men's Health, and co-chairs the NAACP Sacramento Health Committee. His work has earned national recognition. In 2024, the Spirit of the Founders Award for NBNA. In 2023, the American Association for Men in Nursing's IDEA Award. And was named the NBNA Under 40 awardee in 2022. Aron is a co-author of The Diaries of a Resilient Black Nurse, a collection of stories highlighting the struggle and achievements of Black nurses in America. He starred in the documentary Everybody's Work, which sheds light on systemic racism in healthcare and the role of nurses in dismantling barriers to health equity. My other guest, Carter Todd. Carter is a nurse manager and a founder and immediate past president of the Capital City Black Nurses Association, the local chapter of the National Black Nurses Association. Carter is a graduate of Sacramento State University, obtained his BSN with Samuel Merritt University, pursued graduate studies at the Betty Irene Moore School of Nursing at UC Davis, and recently received his MBA with Western Governors University. He is a recipient of the Sacramento Business Journal's 40 Under 40 Award, the Association of California Nurse Leaders Emerging Leader Award, and the National Black Nurses Association 40 Under 40 Award. Engaging with the community partners throughout California, Carter focuses on health education and nursing professional development as an avenue of impact. Carter was also part of the inaugural class of the American Nurses Association California Advocacy Fellowship in 2021. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So I stumbled through both your bios, but for my guests, they have longer bios, and I will include that on the website of the Aron Mentor Podcast website. So please check them out. I also have links to their LinkedIn profiles, so please make sure that you connect with them. They're doing incredible things, and we're going to talk about some of those incredible things this morning. And if I stumble through my words, it's because both of you decided 8 in the morning on a Saturday was the time to record this podcast. So here we are. So how are you two?
We're good. A little groggy this morning, getting over a little bit of a scratchy throat, but really happy to be here. Ali, really appreciate you inviting us. And before you trim anything off of Aron's bio, make sure you run it by him first, you know.
I already did that. It's too late. It's already trimmed. No, but like I said, full bio on the website, so please check them out. But I want to talk about everything that's on both your bios, right? You guys are doing incredible things, and I'm going to say you're really early on your careers, but you've taken off. So I'm going to start with just how did, you're both, first of all, you're both men in nursing, you're both Black men in nursing. So I want to start talking about how did you decide nursing was even a career for you? because I think there's an underrepresentation of diverse nurses just overall in the profession. But you guys are even more representing a more minoritized population of your Black men in nursing. So let's talk about that. How did you guys decided that nursing was the career path for you?
Yeah, I think it started early on. I was really, really interested in science. And so I had a science teacher that was like, hey, we have this, health academy, which was kind of like a pathway program within the school. We learned like medical terminology and things like that. And so he said, you would do really good in that. Like maybe you might have a future in healthcare. And of course, like you're telling a young boy that. So I'm thinking, oh, I got to be a doctor. And so
Mm,
we had this opportunity to shadow in different departments and around the hospital. We had two local hospitals in which we went to a few times a week. I think it was twice a week. And all the cool jobs were like nurses. I was like, what do you do? Like, what is your title? Oh, you're a nurse. I was like, man, I want to be a nurse. And so that's kind of how I got introduced into nursing. And, I just automatically out of high school, just started working on prereqs at the community college and ended up getting into the nursing program.
wow, amazing. Carter?
Yeah. Mine's a little different than Aaron's. I'm from the Central Valley, so pathway programs and access just wasn't something that we had as readily available. When I think back to myself in high school, I was very involved, played all the sports, was on student government. And when people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would say like a paramedic. Because
Mm,
I remember during the career days, the paramedic came, he had the jumpsuit on, and he was really cool, but I just wasn't able to put myself in the shoes of a nurse,
yeah.
probably because I had never seen a male nurse before in my life. I did have two aunties who were nurses, and they were awesome. They had comfortable lives. They always made me feel good and very nice. So I think I gravitated to that. And then one of my
Mm,
aunties, we spent the summer with them, and she told me, she said, "Hey, you got it. You can do this. You have the temperament. I think she's seen it in me when I was probably what 14, 15. So that's what really started it. But then like Aaron, going to college, I was playing sports. I knew, okay, I need to do these kind of classes for science to get into nursing school. So I started my college journey, which was a long journey, with those classes in mind, and then just kept chipping away at it. And then more and more had to expose myself into the career and really understood what it was. I was starting from scratch when I was 18, my first year in college. So put the work in, volunteered, got exposure, and then we made it happen.
no, awesome. Now, how was your experience going through your nursing program? Because I can tell you from my perspective, when I went through a nursing program, is it like a class of 60? I think I was one of six guys in there. So luckily, I had a couple of professors that were also male. So how was your experience going through a nursing program?
Yeah. Well, your 6 out of 60 is pretty much right on par with the statistical average of men in nursing, right?
Right?
I think my class was around 40. I went to Samuel Merritt University, like you heard in the bio, and I actually had a really great experience through nursing school. Of the 40, off the top of my head, there might have been six men, maybe seven. Um, we kind of all congregated towards the back of the classroom. We kind of had all the same temperament, when there's a lot of the angst over test and the having to get good grades, we just had a little bit more mellow of a time. So for me, we had one professor, Dr. Bill Randall. He was a man, and he was awesome. So he started his class. He came in the first day, he showed a video, and it was him in the emergency department at the time in Chicago, which was the busiest emergency department in the country, taking care of a fresh gunshot victim. And he's on the news and he's like in the trenches doing the care. And he turns off the video and turns around. He's like, and I'm going to teach you critical care. And all of us are like, no way. So that's why I say Samuel Merritt University had a pretty decent exposure and
Yeah.
diversity in nursing, which was really cool. I think our class, there were some men in my class who I'm still friends with this to this day. So as a male, and then there was actually another black man in the class with me as well, and he still nurses right up the street from me. So I was very fortunate in my exposure. And before going to Samuel Merritt University, I went to their summer immersions program, which
Mm,
was actually an opportunity to get exposure to the school for diverse students and underrepresented students. So I
wow,
had a good run.
amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
My experience was a little different. um, I actually went to school in Sacramento. So Sacramento population about 500,000. When I was applying to nursing school everywhere, I had a friend that was like, "Hey, did you apply to Shasta College?" I was like, "Where's Shasta College?" And he's like, "It's in Reading." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Where's Reading?" Right? Like I didn't know where this place was, and so I got online. I applied to the program. It was waitlisted, all this time I'm waiting, and I get into Shasta College in Reading. So, first time down to Reading was during orientation. Like I did everything online, sending things by mail or whatever. It was kind of a culture shock. So Sacramento is about 500,000, Reading's like 90,000. And so it
Wow.
was like a big shock. And the demographics are a little different. So it was like when I was there, it was like less than 1% black. And so going into the nursing school, as you can imagine, I was like the only black student in the entire building. And then when we talk about men, we had, I think there were 3 or 4 of us, so a little bit better stats than what y'all had. And there were out of 30. And we lost a few, but then we gained a male LVN, and then we gained a black woman who was LVN enter in. So
Mm,
bridging. So a little bit different as far as demographics. And then I remember, there was one male professor, and that was kind of cool. He was kind of a quiet guy, kind of standoffish. And then in my fourth semester, at the final semester, there was a black woman from New York, out of all places to be in Red.
wow.
She's from Brooklyn, New York, and so I got to meet her. But I remember like being there, like being in class the whole time, the first day, and like listening to her talk and watching her. It's like, huh. So then after class, I went and we got everyone's asking questions. And so I'm standing in line and people would get behind me and I'm like, okay, you could go ahead, you could go ahead. So I waited till I was the last person and I came up to her
Mm.
and I was like, are you black? Because she was very fair. And I was like, are you black? She's like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Like I've gone this whole program seeing very few black people in town, none in the building,
Yeah,
my clinicals, and now I'm meeting another black woman. I was like, okay, like I just needed that. And it was nice
yeah,
because, just feeling like you're not alone, right? And I think that was nice too with the men. And we kind of had that discussion with another group where we're talking about like being able to study, right? At the time I was very far. I lived Sacramento is about 2.5 hours from Reading. And so even studying, right? My wife's hearing all these names and it's all women and there's very few men in order to study with. And so it was nice to also be able to connect with another black person up there and
yeah.
in addition to studying with men and women.
Yeah. So it sounds like diversity of not only ethnic backgrounds or race different races in your programs, but also gender diversity played, I think, key roles for both of you. Because for myself, I mean, I went to school in LA, so diversity wasn't so much of an issue. There was definitely an age gap between myself and my classmates because I was a second career. I was in my like early 30s going into nursing program with a bunch of like, individuals that were in like early 20s. So I was like, all right. And I had already been like 10 years in the military and here I am. But few people that were like, sort of, I wouldn't call them second career, but they had done some work and then for a couple of years and then went into nursing. So a little bit on the older than your regular like 19, 20-year-olds. Um, but um, but same thing for me, like it was important for me to connect with people. I know we had a couple of people in my class that were veterans also. So like I connected a little bit more with them for various, reasons. So that diversity in the population that we go into programs with, I think is important for everybody, not
Yeah.
only not only the communities we're serving, but also for ourselves to be successful. That diversity, I think, matters. And one of the reasons of this podcast, and I always say it, I purposefully diversify my guests on my podcast because I saw my students were not getting the diversity in their experiences. So I'm like, how can I make sure that other people see individuals, successful individuals like yourselves? Because it's unfortunately, it's not the norm that everybody has the exposure to meet a Carter or an Aaron in their early career, right? Unless they come and work for you guys. That's a different story, right?
Well, nursing school is hard, Ali,
Yeah,
and being a nurse, especially a new grad, is tough. So you got to find your people. And
exactly.
for you, because you're gonna stumble, you're gonna, want to debrief something you've seen that might be hitting your feels, or you want to better understand a concept, and you want to be comfortable in making mistakes and asking questions. And I remember in nursing school, there's some people in the class, like I would never ask for help because they would
Yeah,
make me feel less than. Versus for me, it was the gentlemen and the guys in the back of the class, we would just throw it back and forth and roll over different concepts. And I was a lot more comfortable not having the answer. And then same thing as
mm,
a new grad, right? You want to be in an environment where you can learn, you can ask questions. You don't want to be afraid or uptight because that's when you're going to make more errors. So I think it's important to find your community. And it sounds like me and Aaron, we've been able to do that, whether we land into it and we have a good situation or building your own community around you. It's super
yeah.
important.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Now, so you two have definitely been successful. I mean, you're continuing your success. It's one of the reasons that you fell sort of, or my radar picked you up because I look for individuals that are like successful, and I tend to like go to them like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Just from a networking perspective, you never know, like, where you're going to make the connection. So you've both been on my radar for a couple of years now. So I'm going to ask something different. I usually don't ask my guests. Um, what were some of your, because like I said, you clearly have been successful. Where from the time, let's say you finished nursing school, gone into your nursing careers, where did you find some barriers or challenges that you're like, okay, this is something different and I need to address this? Or how did you address it? Just like an example, just because um, I can give you like a dozen of my various things, but what about you guys?
Hmm.
I could start with one. It's one barrier, but kind of two stories. Um, Taking care of patients on the floor. There's times where people become, you know, angry, aggressive. The hospital is a very emotional place.
Okay.
What I would see is a certain demographic of folks who routinely would have to have the police called, and we'd have police presence in the unit versus other people we wouldn't. We had a unfortunate case where there was gun violence in the community. It was all over the news. I happened to be taking care of the patient and the family, and I walk out a report, and there's police stationed at the door. I'm like, well, is this really helping? And then I asked the question to leadership, do we call police for everybody? And why are they here? So that was the first thing that, kind of was a barrier for me to understand and to get through. You put that on top of, you talked about being a man in nursing. I remember being in a room, very high level conversation about a patient's care, probably 25, 30 people. And we're having a conversation. And very routinely, as a man in nursing, I'm the only man in the room of a bunch of women, which is fine. I no problem with that. And we're all talking about the plan of care, and I misspoke, and I think I said something, 75 minutes versus 75 miles away where the patient lived. And then someone corrected me. I said, oh, okay, great. Yeah, sorry. I'm what I really meant. And everyone starts laughing. No big deal. The head person in the room said, oh, it's okay. You misspoke because you're a man. And everyone
Mm.
started chuckling again. And jokes, I joke with the best of them, Ali. Me, I can go back and forth. But in that setting, it just hit me. I was like, huh. And then as I stopped and I assessed my own journey as a leader or growing professionally, I looked up the chain. I said, well, do I want to continue to fight that up this river the whole way? And that was a barrier that I really identified. And you got to be in tune with everything around you, right? So I seen, okay, Am I going to stay here and deal with that? Or am I going to go somewhere else where the treading might be a little bit more up my alley? So
Yeah.
those were two instances early on in my career that you have to be attuned to the environment that you're in, because you can be the best ball player and the best, hit all the home runs, but if you're not on the best team or the best winning culture, you're never going to be as successful as you can.
Yeah. And uh, I want to unpack both of those statements
Yeah.
that you just made, because the second one really hit me because I've had similar experiences of
Uh,
the fact that I'm a man in nursing has specifically been called out in public in a not positive way. I want to unpack that a little bit. Maybe I'll unpack that with both of you. But the first part, can you share with me a little bit more? Do you feel comfortable sharing with me? And you don't have to share anything you don't want to. Like
Sure.
the incident with you bringing attention to the fact that there was a policeman stationed at a patient's room. Um, do you mind sharing? Like you mentioned a certain demographic. Do you mind sharing
Yeah.
that?
So, I think it's a skill and it's an honor, and it's our duty as nurses of color to advocate for our patients of color, right? So,
Mm,
very routinely, we'd have the labeled aggressive, quote unquote, family members,
I agree.
and they typically were Black, what I would see in my experience, and I would be given those patients. And what I would learn very quickly is they're not aggressive, they are going through a natural grieving process as anybody else may.
Yeah.
That day specifically, what really triggered me was on the other side of the unit, we had a legitimate abuse case where it was a legitimate abuse, but that family was allowed to be on the unit walking around with no problem. But then you have the cops on this side for this family because they are going to be losing their loved one and are going through a natural grieving cycle. And that cycle might be elevated.
Yeah.
Now, the claim was that they became aggressive with staff and were yelling and whatnot, but also they got terrible news. So if I got terrible news, you might hear me yell and scream and
Yeah.
respond a certain way. Just like the other thousands of mothers and families that get terrible news that we see and that yell and scream and tell us, no, you're wrong. So what I felt when I brought it up is, I don't think that my experience, the way that I'm interpreting this is the same way that other people are. And it was tough. It's
Yeah.
always tough having those conversations because you feel like you're going to be ostracized after that. Um, the family was great. They were
Yeah.
awesome. And actually, I was actually exactly the nurse that they needed. The physicians that were on, we were able to sit down to understand, to have that dialogue and help the family through. There was no other instances or outbreaks after that or outbursts. But for me, and that's the tough conversation is so understanding the cultural background of police force in the Black community, and now you're bringing police force to the bedside of a dying family
Yeah.
member. Is that really the holistic care that we're wanting to provide? Yes, I want to keep our nurses and our staff safe 110%. But has anyone been assaulted? Has anyone been really threatened? They might have
Yeah.
been yelled at, but as nurses, we get yelled at all the time, right? So
Yeah.
being yelled at, well, how can being yelled at be escalated to police involvement versus an abuse case on the other side and they're walking around free? So that was,
Yeah.
again, for me, assessing kind of the bigger picture. And I think that's a skill that we have as leaders and realizing that there was a misalignment and that was hard for me. And I couldn't not say so.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. And this is why we say diversity in the workforce is important, because our profession remains still primarily white and primarily female. And we know racism in nursing exists. So it's not a matter of it not existing, but any nurse should have been able to step up ideally and said, this isn't right.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. That's not our reality. So I appreciate you sharing that. So thank you. Um, Aaron?
Sure. I think this is funny because anytime I'm ever asked, when you ever asked by um, like a family member, what is something you've seen crazy in the workplace? I think this kind of question came from that, where I was like, in the moment, I'm like, I can't think of anything. But I think mostly more from like a positive turn, I think. Thinking of about an experience just when I was thinking about going back to school, and I tell this story a lot. I was thinking about returning from my master's. And at the point, right, when we look at bedside, I went from med surg to telemetry, and then I found myself in an ICU. I was orienting to charge, and you're doing the rapid responses, and, everything just started to flow. And, I was comfortable in the environment. And then in addition to that, I picked up like a side job, and I was paying off my student loans, and I kind of, I became, and I was like I'm here, like my student loans are off, my car is paid, everything was just like a fine-tuned engine. And I don't want to say I was bored, but I was like, I want to do something else. I got to do something. And the it wasn't quite a barrier, but I think it was a time when someone actually pushed back. And I decided to get my to apply to get my master's. So I applied to school. I went to get a letter of recommendation from one of my managers, and she was actually the only Black manager I've ever worked for. And so I went to her right after everyone's like, "Oh, you're gonna go back to school and get your master? That's awesome, right?" And I came to her and was like, "Hey, I'm applying for this master's program. Can you, do a letter of recommendation for me?" And she's like, "Well, why do you want to go back for your master's?" And that was the first time anyone's ever kind of pushed back. Like everyone else was like so supportive, right? And we
Yeah.
understand that in the era where everyone's going back and getting degrees and degrees and degrees and going back into debt and going to school with like no goal in sight, just to be in school and just
Right.
to, have all these credentials after their name. And I was like, what? And so she's just like, you're not, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a leader? Like, where do you want to go? I was like, I don't know. And she's like, okay. So at that point, she actually pushed back. And, that actually is what connected me to Carter, coincidentally, was her saying you need to get involved in things outside of what you do for your job, right? Because everything I was saying had to do with my responsibility as a charge nurse, as, responding to rapid responses, all of that, right? It was just my job. But there was really no like passion, like I'm doing this because, right, I want something bigger, right? And kind of like how Carter talked about, standing up and stepping up against a wrong, right? There was
Yeah.
times I cared for my patients and I did a lot, but there were really nothing which really reflected my passion. And so she's like, you know, I'll write you the letter. When you get into the program, my recommendations is that you defer for a year and you get into something bigger. And so that's when she handed me the paper for Capital City Black Nurses, like here. So I'm walking out, I'm like, got my letter, whatever, and I'm going to apply and I could go to school. I don't really need to worry about this person. It's a barrier, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen enough Lifetime movies, right? Where someone's like, you can't do, and you're like, I'm going to show them, right? Like this like dramatic, right? Right? But she was right.
Yeah.
Why am I going to go back to school? Right? Like, so I come out with this master's, now what? Right? And so instead of, and I've tried to be that person, I'm sure Carter's going to tell you the same thing. When people tell you they want to make certain moves and you're like, well, why? Right? It's not because I don't want you to do it. I
Yeah.
just want to kind of pull out of you. Right? And so just like, and this is the RM Mentor podcast, right? And so in that moment, she was being a mentor. Why do you
Yeah.
want to go back to school? Right? And it wasn't like she was trying to stop me. She was just trying to pull more out of me,
It's an
right?
important question, right? It's an
Yeah,
important question.
very important. And so, thinking about that, I was like, I could just go to this master's program, forget this lady at the end of her career, and, and I could go get my master's. But in a way, the thing she was saying was right, right? This was a fully funded program. And she's like, you're not going because you want to do something better or do something different. You're going because it's free,
Yeah.
right? And it's not. You're young, you're a young father, you have two small children. It's an investment in time. And
Yeah.
time is something you could never get. You could pay back student loans,
Yeah.
but time is something you could never get back.
Yeah.
And it was right. And so I think in that moment, and kind of take a spin a little bit on your question, is that was a time when I encountered a, lifetime movie barrier. And I decided to, stand up to it and respond, right?
Yeah.
In a positive way.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's,
awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
And then he slid in the DM, and now here we are.
So that's actually a great segue. Let me, because I want to make sure we can talk for hours, I think. So I want to make sure I'm using my time wisely with you. Uh, so let's talk about some of the awesome things you guys are doing, and I didn't necessarily I edited some of that out of your bios. So let's talk about the Capital City Black Nurses Association. Carter, you founded it, right? You're one of the founders or the founder. So let's talk about that. And I know Aaron's has a piece of that too. So let's talk about that. How did that start? Because that's not a small task to take on.
Sure. I'm going to tell a very condensed version for the sake of time, Ali, but it starts with, again, Aron Mentor podcast, um, Dr. Kapiri Ackerman Barger. I
Yeah.
was at the Betty Irene Moore School of Nursing in my
Yeah.
graduate program.
Any guests on this show?
Yes, correct. Shout out the show. And so I was at school. I was a part of National Black Nurse Association as just an ad hoc member. There was no local chapter.
Mm.
And the president at the time, Dr. Eric J. Williams, called me out of the blue in one of those divine moments, right? And he called me and I was sitting there. How you doing, President? You need to start a chapter in Sacramento and I'm going to help you. Let me know if you need anything. Hung up the phone and I had been a nurse for 2 years, 2.5 years. And my wife, she could see the look. She's like, what was that? And I talked to her and having a great support system. She's like, great, do it. So then the first person I talked to, getting back to Dr. Peary, is I go to her. She was my mentor for my work. She said, awesome, I'll support you. You should do it. I'll join.
Yeah.
So from there, I reached out to the 12 other Black folks that I knew who were nurses. One of those being the most pivotal conversation that took place on the top of the staircase. I'll never forget because she was walking by and I had never met her, but I'd seen her on all the pamphlets, on all the brochures because her face was everywhere. That was Cherie Kreiner.
Yeah.
I stopped her. I said, Cherie, I'm Carter. I want to meet you. I've seen you all over the place. I'm starting this group. You should join. She said, okay, no problem. I'll do it. So we chartered our initial chapter. There was some little bit of turnover initially. When I started, I was actually in the background a little bit more and tried to push and elevate somebody else. Things happened, so then I ended up being president. But Cherie Kreiner, myself, a couple other people have been here since the beginning. Really fortunate to be around a lot of good people initially. I remember she showed me what a SMART phrase was or a SMART goal was, and I was
Smart goal.
so brand new. So fast forward now, we've been around since 2019. So about 5, 6, 7 years. We've expanded to over 100 members. We've gotten a lot of great traction. And I think our success has been we have a different feel from a nursing association and organization that I think bodes well to the technology and the times.
Yeah.
We were doing Zoom way before everyone had to do Zoom during the pandemic. We were on social media way before anyone else was really pushing social media. And then the way that we present our professionalism is different, right? I don't think that we're um, as stale as some of the other groups that you might see. And we're
Yeah.
really authentic. We're going to tell
Yeah.
you what it is because what we're trying to do, who we're trying to talk to, is it needs that to build
Yeah.
the trust in the community. So I could talk to I'm blue in the face about Capital City. That's how it started. And now we've grown to a nice national representation. I'll let Aron talk about some of our programs, but some of the ones that I'm just really proud of is the nurse boot camp that got really started by Dajane Gresham Ryder or Dr. Dajane Gresham Ryder, excuse me, let me put some respect on her name. And Cherie Kreiner have been lifting that up for the last 3 to 4 years. And then our scholarship. So Aron and I were talking last night in our scholarship last year, like we had Dr. Ernest Grant as our keynote, right? We have, Dr. Paulina Van in this
Yeah.
crowd. Like it's just blossomed into this event that when we first thought about it it just blows our mind every time. The amount of money that we've been able to give away, the amount of students that we've been able to impact. I mean, those handshakes and hugs when you're handing someone a check to go to school is
Yeah.
it's worth everything. So
Yeah.
I'll let Aaron tell you about the programs though, because he's a
Yeah.
program king.
That's awesome.
I don't know about all that. I think the second part of, what is it? On HBO Becoming. I think, the second part of that was, when I came in with a capital city. So the chapter is actually founded in 2018. And I only remember that because I came around a year after they started. And, really answering the call that my manager, and Dr. Kayleen Roseman, since we're shouting people out, really put me on, right? And she's like, get involved. And so I was like trying my hardest. I was like, I got to do everything. If they need people for a booth or a table, I'm showing up. So everything that they possibly need a person for, I was showing up. And then came to the point where they were like, hey, and we have this nursing conference. And I was like, like, what is that about? I had never been to a nursing conference, had
Mm.
never really heard about a nursing conference. So like, no, they have MBNA, their nursing conference, and it's going to be in New Orleans. And I was like, well, I've never been to Louisiana. I've only been to a few states. And so I was like, you know what? I'll do it. So boom, signed up to go to the conference, and I was blown away. At this point, I was preparing to enter my master's program. So I missed that initial start date in 2018, but I was preparing to start my master's program in September of 2019. And so this was the summer. And I show up to New Orleans and I was like blown away. Like here I am thinking like, the biggest thing I could ever dream for is a master's in nursing. And everyone there has like a doctorate, like DNPs, PhDs. I'm the CNO of this. I haven't even met my CNO, and here I am with a CNO, CNE that looks like me, right? Um,
Yeah.
Hospitals as big as the ones I work for. I'm the CEO of this. I started this company. I run a clinic. I'm a professor. I'm a this, and I was like, whoa, this is it. And and what people were talking about is like the programs they started, the people that they helped, it was just a different kind of energy. It wasn't like puff my chest out. This is, I felt like it was like a different currency, right? It was kind of like uh, everyone wanted to talk about the people that they serve, the programs that they created, what they're doing, how they're working with students, how they're mentoring students. That was the currency. That was, you know what I mean, the clout, right? It's like
Yeah.
I have this many mentors, and this is what they're accomplishing, right? So it's not even a competition as far as like let me outdo everybody, right? And it kind of swings back to like how I say it's not how far I go, it's how many people I can bring. And I really learned that from MBNA. Everybody's talking about pushing everybody forward, right? And people getting positions and promotions and, on and on. But that was the moment that really just sold me. I was like, I can't miss another one of these. I'm excited to get back and try something. And so the first thing that came to mind in conversation with Carter, I had the opportunity to participate in a barbershop based health initiative in my undergrad in Reading. Believe it or not, in 0.8% Reading, we started a Black Barbershop Initiative, or at least we participated. I think I've seen everybody in town. Um, that day. And so, I talked to Carter, let's do one of these. Like, we could do blood pressures, we could do this, do that. Carter's like, no, like, let's do something bigger. Like, we can't just be like, we got to do something different. Like, we can't
Yeah.
just say, you have hypertension, you got diabetes, see a doctor. Like, we need to bring resources, right? And so, wraparound services. And so, that's where that conversation led to, the barbershop health talks that we created. And at that time, we were revving up. It was Black History Month was in February. We were planning our event in June. And Carter and I had a meeting, and we're like, let's just get through Black History Month. We have a big event for the chapter. And, at that point, we had what, like 20 members. So any event was a big event, right? And so, so we we were like, all right, Black History Month done. March hits, everybody knows what happens in 2020 in March, and we're like, now we gotta rethink this. So we cried a little bit, and then we got up and we licked our wounds, and we were like, all right, let's do something. What can we do? And so we
Yeah.
started brainstorming an event. And so it ended up being a virtual barbershop program in which we streamed content into barbershops. We partnered with our sister chapter in Brooklyn, New York. Shout out to Greater New York Black Nurses Association, and two gentlemen, Dr. Julius Johnson and Josie Perpigman. We partnered together and we did like a dual coast event. So it was
Nice.
virtual. We had content streamed from the East Coast, content streamed in the West Coast, and it was just conversations, right? And things just came up, right? Hypertension, diabetes, of course, COVID-19, manhood, fatherhood, you know, everything. ED came up, and we just talked, right? And just
Yeah.
conversation flow. And that was kind of like our first barbershop program. So really to fast forward to today, we are in our third year of a program in partnership with the Greater Sacramento Urban League called Cut to the Chase. It is the topic of my dissertation. And so we do mental health group therapy with a licensed mental health professional, a therapist, uh, the first and second Thursday of every month at two different barbershops in historically redlined areas. And so we got grant funding to connect men with one-on-one mental health services from a therapist. Um, but our groups range anywhere from 40 to 30, or excuse me, 4 to 30. Like we've had groups as small as 4 or 5, as large as 30, 40 people. And there's really no incentive, right? The guys just kind of come for space. And that's kind of like what what my dissertation focuses on is like, why do men choose to come to our space? Because we do have sandwiches. I talk about that all the time. Uh, but I don't know. Maybe the guys are coming for the sandwiches. They do have a little bit of bacon on it, right? But it was what's the draw? What's the community? And the success
Yeah.
of that program's kind of rolled into the Cut to the Chase Crown Edition, which is for Black women inside beauty salons. So it's been a really successful, and I'll let
That,
kind of fill
yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Carter?
Yeah, well, Aaron, he's not going to tell you about all the other programs that he started and is leading. So there's the Breaking Down Barriers initiative that he's been started and spearheaded for several years now, and bringing in several other the ethnic-centric nursing associations here in Sacramento. There's the Shines program with partnership with UC Davis Betty Moore School of Nursing. And then we actually co-hosted the National Black Nurses Conference in Northern California for the first time in 20 years
Wow.
this past summer, which was a huge lift for our team. We collaborated with the Bay Area Black Nurses and the Silicon Valley Black Nurses Association. So that was a huge lift. So like Aaron said, to have that aha moment in New Orleans and then fast forward 5 years later, and now we're hosting that conference. It was in response to some of the legislation that came through in Florida banning DEI at the time. So really proud of the decision to move from Florida to
Yes.
California, where we can make a stance and spend our resources where we are respected and heard. And we were happy to answer the call for that. So a lot of great things that Capital City Black Nurses has done, but more important, a lot of great people. Now we're to that point where we're seeing the students who have been through programs, the high schoolers or the nursing students now working in jobs on the floor, and kind of it's all starting to come together, right? It's slow building in the beginning, but now we're starting to really see it amplify.
Yeah, amazing. And definitely shout out to NBNA for making that decision to move the conference. And I know it cost them a couple of bucks to do that,
Yeah.
more than a couple of bucks. But moving in from Florida to California. So that was and I think on social media I called them out on it. I should not call them out. I did a shout out to them for making that decision because so many nursing organizations still uh, do their conferences in Florida, in Texas, in areas where they're actively discriminating against so many different populations. So,
If you stand for nothing, you'll stand for anything.
right. So yeah, two places I don't go to conferences, Florida and Texas, and I haven't gone to both of them for quite some time. So if you're having a conference there, you won't see me. So yeah. Moving on, moving on. Unless you're paying me. No, I'm just kidding.
Put your shades on, walk in,
Yeah, shades
little
off,
hoodie on.
buddy. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, yeah. So, but no, no, I appreciate you guys sharing that, and really, it is a community effort to do everything that you guys are doing, right? That's not a one person job, and so glad that you guys are doing so many innovative things. That really needs to be highlighted. Remind me to get more information so we can put that um, on the website because I follow you guys on social media and I see all the activities that you guys do. I'm like, I need something like that down here in LA area. So
Sure.
you guys are too far, man. So
Well, people on the East Coast are like, "Oh, I'm gonna fly into LA. Can we meet up?" It's like,
yeah, I'm like,
it's
yeah,
a
let
little
me
far from Sac.
exactly,
Quite
exactly.
the push.
Exactly, exactly. That's awesome. So I know we still have a few minutes left, and I want to quickly talk about one more thing. I want to talk about Aaron being a movie star for a second. Tell me about this. It's a documentary, right? And I haven't had a chance. I'm going to say I haven't had a chance to see it. I'm waiting to see how I can see it.
Oh, it's a
Uh,
great film. It's
so
a great film.
I've heard incredible things about it. I definitely want to see it. Talk about how this came about and how can people see it?
Yeah, so well, first of all, the movie I'm referring to is by Shift Nursing. We had Chad Tingle and Desiree. Her name is escaping me at the moment, but they put the movies together as producer and director for the film. And it focuses on a lot of different topics around nursing, racism in nursing, implicit bias, a lot of the barriers in which you were discussing earlier when we look at the representation of Black and Brown people as RNs versus LVNs, and
Yeah,
how there were a lot of things that were put in place, like barriers, right, at a more of a structural area, a structural level, to kind of push Black and Brown people from becoming RNs. And so it was a great film. I didn't like the whole way it came up was it was an email that got sent to me. Was I interested in talking to a group regarding a documentary? And so I get on a Zoom and they couldn't really tell me what it is they were doing, but they just wanted to hear about what I was doing. And so I was like, okay, you don't really have a direction. And so they're like, tell me about yourself. I was like, well, that's a huge question. So, like, tell me what interests you in nursing. So I started there and I could talk. So it was about 35 minutes of me just talking and them laughing because, for some reason people find me funny sometimes. And um, then it was just like a little fill-in questions they had. And they were like, all right, cool. Well, we're interviewing, we're talking to a couple different people. We'll get back to you. So ended the Zoom, didn't hear anything, and all of a sudden we're flying into Atlanta for our conference, and I get an email and was like, hey, this is the time we're coming to Sacramento. And I was like, well, I don't know if I could make, like, I'm a nerd. Like, we got Capital City Black Nurses Association. I work. I have children. There's a lot of moving parts, right, for all of us, right? And that's
yeah,
me. Not to mention Carter. Running units, and it's like you can't just like drop into Sacramento and say I need like an hour and a half, 2 hours of your time. But we figured it out, and so they followed me for a couple hours at the hospital, and then I sat down for an interview, and they just used a lot of what we discussed to kind of form questions. And so it ended up being a really great experience. I didn't know who was all in the documentary. Uh, the January, I want to say it was like 2023, started off with the trailer that dropped. And so then I was
yeah,
actually able to see who was in there. And there was like really big names.
yeah,
Dr. Monica McLemore, Dr. Lucinda Canty, um, just so many different people in there, Dr. Ernest Grant. And I was like,
I think they just went through my podcast and they saw who I had on because when I looked at the trailer, I'm like, that person's been on my show, that person's been on my show, that person's been on my show. But yeah, big names, right? Right.
yeah, just big names, and it was a cool experience, even just to get like a couple seconds. I was like, well, I don't know
Yeah,
how much
yeah, yeah.
in the movie, but wow, that was great. And they ended up, we had the premiere, and I had a good amount of screen time, right? I
Yeah,
was like, oh, this is great. And it was cool just to because there were so many people that gave really great content, I'm sure, and they had to make it cut, and it's just very palpable, right? Like it's not this super drawn out 3 hour movie. It's an hour, and
yeah,
it is just so it covers so much content. A lot of things that you and I and Carter would go, oh yeah, we all know that, right? Because we're in it. But from people outside that live in communities that are kind of segregated, right, and their
yeah.
thinking or what they see, it's a lot of good information.
Yeah, yeah. Based on the trailer, I thought you were the only person in the movie, so that's why I was like,
That's the running joke, Ali's, when we pull up. It's like, oh, have you seen Aaron's film?
Aaron's film. So yeah, no, I'm glad, I saw that trailer. I'm like, oh, I know the people, I know the people, and so that's why where is it going to come out that so everybody can see it?
So the
Do you
producer,
know?
I forgot before I forget, Desiree Duncan is the producer,
Desiree Dunk.
and the director is Chad Tingle. And the movie is available online if you go to shiftnursing.com.
Oh,
You
okay.
can find kind of like everybody's work. And so at one point it was only for group screenings, and now you can
Yeah.
individually. It's on YouTube, and so you kind of fill out a survey and you just say you're going to watch it privately, and they'll send you the link, and
Oh,
that's
beautiful.
it. Yeah.
Beautiful. I'll
So
make sure I'll
it's
find it and link it to the show. So,
yeah, it's been great, and we've had a lot of panel discussions regarding the movie, which have been just amazing, right? Everyone has so many questions, and it's just been eh, I
yeah,
could have asked for a greater experience to occur, right? Because these are the conversations that we need to have more within the profession, right? Within our own house, right? Before
yeah.
we start talking about healthcare in general, we need to have that conversation within nursing.
100% agree. All right. So I definitely want to be cognizant of our time. I can talk to you guys. For our audience, Aaron and Carter, we've already had like an hour discussion like a week ago. So this is just more on top of that. So like I said, I could talk to you guys forever. So before I let you go, anything else you guys want to discuss, promote? Because like I said, you guys are doing so much work, and I can't personally, I'm looking forward to seeing where your careers continue to lead you, because I think you two are going to be, you already are, but you're going to be even bigger players in the profession. And I just wanted to catch you early rather than later, because I'm not going to be able to get on your schedules. So I'm gonna like hang my hat on that one. So anything else you guys want to share before I let you guys go?
Yeah, I got two things, Ali. I first want to say thank you for seeing us and allowing us to be here. I remember the first time Aaron met you, he called me immediately and was like, I finally got to meet him. I seen him. So for you to allow access, we were talking about that like mentorship. It's obviously giving information, but then the sponsorship is a huge
Yeah.
growing other people. So I really appreciate this opportunity and you seeing us. And then I do want to give a shout out to Aaron over there. He had a huge week. He defended his dissertation
Uh,
successfully. So a really big milestone for him. He has that little baby seat behind his name for a little bit. But we're really proud of him. A ton of work. He's been working 2 jobs. He's continuing to put in the work with Capital City Black nurses and running statewide national programs while having a full-time family. So it's no easy task what he's been able to do. And I just want to say congratulations.
yes, definitely another congratulations. Before we started recording, I was telling Aaron, like, congratulations. He did defend he's now a candidate, PhD candidate. So on his way to becoming Dr. Aaron King. So looking forward to that, definitely. Aaron?
I echo everything that Carter said. I remember meeting you. I believe it was at Win, and
Probably.
I listened to the podcast, but I had never really seen your face. And so maybe I've seen your face, but I was like, who is this guy? And then I started hearing your voice, and I was like, okay, I know him. And no one with me were like, does he look familiar? Like, no, no. So then I remember I just went up to you. I was like, where do I know you from? Like this is gonna bother me. But yeah, here we are 3 years later on the podcast. And so thank you so much for, uplifting, our nurse leaders, a lot of historic leaders that we have within the profession. And then also, Carter and I, who I still see as, up and coming, we're still learning and still growing. And so, big respect and hat off to that. And then also Carter, like, I know he, threw me a little love, but definitely like this community that we have, CCBNA, it really came from not having identity, right? Like our chapter has grown into its own identity, but he's allowed that platform, right? He didn't have this mission of his own greatness, but just a way of just connecting people within the area, within the region. And I mean, all that I do really goes back to him and the group that he's created the space to be safe, to venture out, to be creative, to be innovative, to make mistakes. And so, I can't show enough love to him. And I talk to him about it all the time, right? Because if I wasn't challenged by a mentor, I wouldn't have connected to him. And, I would have had a very different master's, and I might not be sitting here with, on my way to a PhD. And so, big ups to that. And then, of course, just some of the programs that we've created. Capital City Black Nurses Association, all of us are volunteers. I tell people all the time we got full-time jobs, right? We still got families. And in addition to that, we're allowed for a little bit of greatness, right? My wife
Yeah.
reminds me of that all the time. You told me it was only going to be one day out of the month. And now it's like every single day is something with Capital City Black Nurses. But we have an upcoming scholarship event, and I know that for many students that are in nursing school, money is the biggest barrier, right? Not being able to work. And our chapter has really done a great job of removing any kind of barriers. So we really don't care about your GPA. Our focus is that you have a need, right? And you're enrolled in school and you have a need. And so if any, the listeners want to, continue to donate to our chapter for our scholarship fund, we greatly appreciate it. We are using that money to really help uplift our current nursing workforce. And that's one of our goals as a national organization, especially important in our local area.
Wow, amazing, amazing. You're both doing amazing work, and thank you for giving me your time, because like you both mentioned, you have like 30 things going on at any given time. So thank you for making, and I guess this is why we're doing it 8 in the morning recording on a Saturday.
On a Saturday.
Because you guys are way, you guys are, your schedule is full. So again, thank you so much. Thanks to both of you. We have been talking to soon to be Dr. Aron King and Carter Todd, who you both, like I said, I admire both of you for all the work that you guys are doing. You're doing incredible work, and I appreciate you both sharing your stories with me and our audience. And you're welcome to come back on the show anytime. Just give me a shout, give me a call. You both have my number. So definitely, again, appreciate you being on the show. For our audience, thank you for joining me again for another season. And I look forward to bringing you more incredible nursing colleagues and guests and friends to share with you. So thank you so much. Thanks for joining me on the Aron Mentor Podcast, a production of Aron Mentor Consulting. Please don't forget to follow and check out aronmentor.org for additional content, speakers, podcast notes, and more. Until next time, fair winds and following seas.